Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, and my main vlog or video project for May is reading books that inspired my favourite movies. So one of my favourite movies is The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. Now, I watched this movie way younger than I should have. I think I was about 14, 15 when I watched it. But, whew, that was not a good idea. And, yeah, so I've never actually read the book. So I thought, I've got it on my TBR. I've always needed to read it, so... Yes, we've got Silence of the Lambs. And then, probably my favourite animated movie that's not a Disney movie is How to Train Your Dragon. And I have the book for that here, How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell. Yeah, this one isn't very long. I'm kind of growing out of middle grade, but I have this one on here, and I want to at least get it off my TBR. Yeah, and then these next two are actually probably my favorites of favorite movies. My favorite movie when I was a teenager was Stardust by Neil Gaiman. That was my version of The Princess Bride. My sibling loved The Princess Bride and is obsessed with that movie. I was obsessed with Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Yeah, that movie, such fun. And yeah, so I found like the full dramatization of it. So yeah, I want to listen to that. And my favorite Stardust was my favorite movie as a teenager. That's still my favorite now. My favorite movie today, probably beside... Well, my favorite... It's either this or Ghost with Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze. But it is Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. But yeah, it was actually based on a true story, which I did know. What I didn't know was that Frank Abagnale wrote a book. And I found an audiobook for that too. So yeah, I'm going to get my fix of my favorite movies and see how they compare to the books that started it all. Bye!
Of course I know I am glowing. I'm a star. And what do stars do best?
Hello. So I am going to do this, first clip from the bed because I can't be bothered getting up and setting up the tripod when the camera was right next to me. But I have started the audiobook for Stardust. I think I got a fair amount of the way into it. It's only like 2.5 hours long total. But yeah, I listened to that throughout the day today. And yeah, hold on. I did take some notes to talk about the similarities and the differences in the book, which is kind of the point of this video. So let's start with the similarities, because there's actually less of those according to my list. Similarities. Yeah, they have... Yeah, the story about Tristan's mother being trapped by an evil witch, and the story about how Dustin and I can't remember her... Oh wait, no, she doesn't have a name. But yeah, Dustin Throp and the woman who becomes who is Tristan's mother, that story is the same. He goes to visit her at a carnival, pays her with a kiss, and then they eventually, have Tristan. And then the brothers and the royal brothers and the witches are all also looking for the star, as well as Tristan. And Victoria and Tristan still leave the store together that's when they see the star, and Tristan offers to catch it for her. And then my list of differences is quite longer, so I'll go into them and then I'll discuss it more. Yeah, so in this one, Tristan isn't actually an only child. He has a sister who is 6 months younger than him named Louisa. And she's not... I don't think she's the best sister, because she does encourage people to tease him at school, which I don't think is very nice. But hey, it's kind of what little sisters do as well. And yet, so the one of the big differences is with the in the movie, there's one guard at the wall, and Dustin, Throp, and then later Tristan eventually trick the guard into letting them cross into this other land. But in the book, it's actually it's not one guard, it's actually the villagers of Wall are the ones that stand guard. And so on the night that Dustin meets the woman, he's one of the ones who's keeping guard at Wall, and then eventually just ends up at the carnival where he meets this lady. And yeah, when Tristan decides to go and get the star for Victoria, his dad actually walks with him to the Wall, and he manages to convince the two that are on guard to let Tristan through without questioning him. So yeah, that's one of the big differences. It's just the way that the Wall is done and like the guarding of it. And yeah, another difference is in this, Tristan actually already has a mother. Like, he's got two parents in the book, and I'm pretty sure he only has his dad in the movie. Yeah, so that's not really... I don't really think that's relevant to the plot, but it is one of the differences that have come up so far. And then... yeah, and then going back to Victoria and Tristan. They don't really set a deadline for when he has to be back. Like in the movie, he's got a 3-day deadline to be back in time for Victoria's birthday. In this, they don't really have one, and they don't really have that much of a conversation about it. It also wasn't necessarily for Victoria's hand in marriage, or she's marrying this other guy. It was essentially, get me to star and I'll give you your heart's desire. So not necessarily marriage, it could just be something simple. Yeah, and I've just gotten to the point where he meets Yvain, and yeah, she gets to Earth a similar way. She falls from the sky, and then she has kind of an attitude towards Tristan at the beginning. In this version, in the movie, they add the fact that she broke her leg, and Tristan essentially, straight after finding her, goes to sleep, and Yvain is just swearing at and insulting him until she eventually falls asleep. And yet, that's where I got up to. And actually, no, yeah, and then the only other thing that was, yeah. So going away from Tristan's part of the story for a sec, you've got the Witch Queen who doesn't have a name in the book, and I'm not really sure she had one in the movie either. I always thought her name was Lamia, but I don't know if that was just for the movie or if I'm making that up. But yeah, she still has all the same thing. She still has essentially the same beginning of the story as she did before. She meets this other witch, is tricked into telling her about the star, and then basically curses this other, and then basically the Witch Queen, I'm just going to call her Lamia because that's what I knew her name as. Yeah, Lamia eventually makes it that she doesn't remember any of the conversation, and she's not going to be able to see the star or interact with her at all. So she's going to have no idea what anything is. Yeah, so that's basically all stayed the same. And then you've got the three brothers who are fighting to find the star in order to get the crown. the the way that one of them was killed off is a bit different in the book, because instead of one of them just being pushed out the window like in the movie, they actually all three of them leave together, and then one of them gets poisoned, and that's how that one dies, and then the brother who poisoned them takes off in the carriage, and then the third brother makes sure that that this brother gets the proper like shit back to the kingdom and the proper respect, and then he chases after the other, and then he chases after the other brother, and that is essentially where I'm up to in the story so far. Well, actually, we're going back to Tristan's story just to add in, yeah, something I've. It's not really relevant, but he does meet this one other person who isn't in the movie, but he essentially warns Tristan not to tell people that he's looking for the star. And yeah, he essentially acts as a tour guide for Tristan to help get him closer to the star. But yeah, he does warn people not to tell them where he's going or about the star, because yeah, people will try and take the star and do something. Yeah. And that is where I'm going to end this update, because that is literally everything all that's happened in the plot so far. And I will catch you guys once I have some more. Bye. Hello. So, yes, I am in a Winnie the Pooh onesie. No, I don't regret it, because it is freezing in Australia right now. But I have finished Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I actually finished it last night, but then I was too tired. But then I ended up falling asleep before I could be bothered to pick up the camera again. Then I was at school all day, so I wasn't even back until dark. So this is literally the first chance I'm actually able to get to stand in front of my camera. But overall, the ending of this book, it felt kind of rushed, and there wasn't really like this big climax scene like there was in the movie. In the movie, there was this full takedown of Lamia and all of that before Tristan and Yvain got together, and then he became the last sole heir of this place. So yeah, it was a bit less anticlimactic than the movie. I ended up giving the book a 3.5 star because it was still good, but some parts of it were quite slow, and it wasn't nearly as fun of a time as the movie. Yeah, so the only real other changes that came up, besides what I'd already talked about in full detail, is the way that Tristan's mother escaped the witch who was enslaving her. The other witch didn't die. She just somehow, there was some kind of spell on the chain that eventually allowed her to be free. And the one change that I did like was what they did to Victoria's character. In the movie, Victoria was a bitch from start to finish. Like, there was no argument that. But in the book, she came back into the story and she had felt guilty that Tristan went on this quest for her because she thought that he wasn't actually serious. And he was apparently she was going to be... Yeah, apparently the day that they talked about it was the day that she was going to announce that she was marrying someone else. So yeah, she never actually intended for Tristan to search for Yvain in the first place. So she was feeling guilty that something happened to Tristan because of this whole thing. And the promise that she made meant that she had stopped her courting of this other guy because, yeah, she thought that she had to keep her side of the bargain because she thought that she had promised to marry Tristan. But Tristan tells her that what she actually promised was to give him his heart's desire, and he said that his heart's desire was for her to marry this guy and be happy, and he would marry Yvain. So yeah, overall, I did like what they did with Victoria's character. That made her a bit more likable in the book. In the movie, she was a fucking bitch. But anyway, enough of that. That's pretty much where the story ends. There wasn't really anything else of note worth mentioning. But yeah, it's sitting at a 3.5 star, and I will see you guys for the next book. Bye!
Okay there, bud. We're gonna take this nice and slow. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Position 4.
Okay, so this part of the video isn't going to be long because this book is actually very different to the movie, so I won't really need to do much of a comparison. But it was a cute story. We still have Hiccup and Toothless. In this book, there's pressure. He's the son of like the chief, and he's got a lot to and he has stuff to prove. But yeah, this book is just so different to the movie that it doesn't seem fair to compare it. But I did get it off my TBR, and it was based on one of my favorite movies, so it counts for this video. But that's it for this clip because there's not really a lot to compare, and I'll move on to the next one. Bye.
FBI, come out of the bathroom.
Hello. So I'm just going to quickly tell you, I have finished all the books for this video, and I'm just going to do a really quick update before I go to bed so that I can get this video out on the weekend, like finally get it up, because there's been about a week and a half since I did the last update on this video, but I did finish the audiobook of Catch Me If You Can. This one is an interesting one to review because it's considered a non-fiction, but it's hard to... But because of who Frank Abagnale was, it's hard to know whether this story is actually true or whether it's more made up, or whether it's more stuff he made up to make himself sound more interesting. So yeah, it was a well-done story, and I liked being inside Frank Abagnale's head. But yeah, it's really hard to know whether he is actually being honest in this story. But yeah, the comparison of the book to the movie, there were some parts the movie extended on or changed compared to what was in the book. In the book, he got arrested and sent to prison about 2 or 3 different times before eventually meeting a woman who helped him escape from prison. And then he fooled the FBI once again by pretending to be an FBI agent, and then took off. He did eventually finish it with that he still ended up doing some kind of work in terms of helping the banks and all that learn about how to identify fraud checks, which is similar to what happened in the movie. In the movie, Tom Hanks' character, he does pretend to be an FBI agent. That does happen, and he outsmarts Tom Hanks' character. But eventually he gets arrested, and then instead of Frank volunteering to teach them that, Tom Hanks' character asks him to come work for him and the FBI doing the bank fraud. But yeah, overall this was an interesting read, and I don't rate non-fiction because I don't really think it's fair to rate people's life story. But yeah, I did enjoy it, and I will cut to the next one.
Dr. Lecter, my name is Clarice Starling. May I speak with you?
Okay, and I also finished Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. This one was actually quite a well-done book. I felt like it was more of a character study as opposed to plot-heavy. Yeah, because the characters of Hannibal Lecter, but more specifically Clarice Starling, they were presented well in this book. And yeah, I definitely feel like this was way more of a character study than plot heavy. But I read it pretty quickly, and it was quite well done. In terms of if it's different to the movie, I think it's pretty similar to the movie. Granted, I haven't seen the movie in a long time. But yeah, I think this is pretty similar in terms of the story. Like, they've still got Buffalo Bill and they've still got this girl who's been kidnapped. They go to Hannibal Lecter for help. And Hannibal Lecter tricks them and eventually escapes custody. And then Clarice Starling ends up finding the guy anyway. So, yeah. Yeah, overall, this was a well done book, and I'm definitely going to give it I'm giving it 4.5 star. It would have been a 5 if there was a bit more like plot heavy stuff in here, and yeah, there were some parts of all the technical talk. There were some parts I didn't understand, so yeah, that has to bring it down. But yeah, it was still a very good story, and I did enjoy it. Yeah, so overall, this book gets a 4.5 star. And that concludes my books for this video. And I had some wins. I had some that were average, and then I had some where where I enjoyed the movie better. But yeah, overall this was a good experiment, and I got some books off my TBR that have been sitting on there for a while. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!